One really common resolution is to lose weight. For years, we have been told that fat is the enemy, especially saturated fat. But our first guest says that we may have gotten it all wrong, and he's here to explain why certain fats may have been unfairly demonized and how this could change the way that we eat every single day.
Joining us to break this all down, psychiatrist, board-certified internist, and addiction specialist, Dr. Drew Pinsky. Hi, Dr. Drew. How are you?
Good to see you guys. The only thing on that intro, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm everything else, but not that.
We were hoping you. This is wishful thinking.
For your later, I know. I understand.
We need the help.
I picked up on. I did work in a psychiatric hospital for 30 years.
We need you.
I'm not we, but Ben and I will talk later.
Yeah, definitely. Hope you don't charge too much.
But you framed that exactly properly, which is exactly the issue. Is that I'm really sick of things being handed down from on high by the government that is not accurate, and people saying it's thus saith the Lord, when in fact it is very poorly established in the science, often adulterated by all sorts of influences, and the saturated fat story is one of them. For instance, a new study just came out that shows high saturated fat dairy products reduce the risk of dementia. And we actually have a deficiency in the odd chain saturated fatty acids, something called C15. I work with a group that was doing dolphin research, and they found out that these dolphins, when they were deficient in C15, got dementia and fatty liver, just like we do. They restored the C15, reversed these problems, or prevented these problems. And so now this has been established as an essential fatty acid, it's saturated fatty acid, and one that is a key longevity nutrient.
I have so many questions.
Can we go back to dolphin research?
And dementia.
Is that something?
I have so many questions.
So these are Navy dolphins. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins.
Veterans.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
With dementia.
This is actually a veterinarian epidemiologist that identified this and did the studies and wrote a book called The Longevity Nutrient. And I saw her TED Talk, and I thought, this woman knows what she's talking about. Got involved with her, and lo and behold, more and more data coming out.
Wow.
There is still controversy, right? I mean, if you have heart disease, saturated fatty acid, or cerebral vascular disease, maybe an issue, right? We don't know there yet. But for the average person, in terms of our health and longevity, we may have inadvertently caused some real problems here. So grass-fed finished beef, high-fat saturated fat, dairy products, and then C15. You can check that out on my website if you're
But
interested.
are people going to be like pounding all these foods now, thinking that they're going to be beneficial to you?
This,
like
you mentioned weight loss.
Right.
So if you're focused on weight loss, the saturated fatty acids can help you with appetite, right? They're satiating. So for instance, I'll use heavy cream in my coffee in the morning. Not a lot, a small amount.
Right.
And then you have to manage your calorie intake, of course.
Yeah, we're not, as a culture, we're not great at moderation, which is, I think, where a lot of these things come into
if
play.
we're going to have a conversation about how sick our culture is, I'm going to need the rest of the show.
So there's new USDA guidelines coming, right?
There are new guidelines coming. It's still being kind of hashed out in terms of what the formal if the fish oils are still good, particularly DHA is good. So grass-fed finished beef. I really feel that when we finally sort this all out, the carbohydrates are going to be more the issue than the fats. I think just the word fat has people sort of biased against them. But the fact is, fats, especially essential fats, are important for not just our health and nutrition, but our longevity too, it turns out. And we have this data now that suggests dementia, fatty liver disease, these things, even type 2 diabetes possibly could be reduced with these odd chain saturated fatty acids.
And you talked about what's some more approachable foods that like people are watching right now and they're like, okay, grass-fed. What is that? Grass-fed finished beef. Just look at where your beef is sourced. Right.
Just pay attention to that. There's lots of good sources of beef out there. If you are somebody with heart disease, there may be an issue. Talk to your doctor about it. I'm not saying it's a settled. There's no such thing as settled science. The whole COVID thing, I hope, taught people that science is an evolving process, and a lot of our nutritional recommendations have been nonsense. They've been just flat out wrong, and the fat story is part of that. The woman I'm telling you about, this veterinarian, wrote a great book called The Longevity Nutrient that if you really want to read, she just makes it so accessible there. If you want to read about it, you can read about it at that book.
One of the things we hear a lot about is ultra-processed foods, and you mentioned carbohydrates, ultra-processed carbohydrates. Why do you think those might be the enemy?
Well, I think that this is I didn't expect to talk about this, but this is kind of complicated. I do think it's not even just the ultra-processed, so obviously those are even worse. As they spike insulin, they raise cortisol levels. That I think we're going to tell more of a story about the lining of our arteries and how damage occurs to those linings. And part of that is going to be an interaction between carbohydrates, certain kinds of fats, and certain white cells like macrophages that together seem to injure the artery and then the cholesterol deposition ensues. It's complicated, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen in everybody. That's the other thing, is that our genetics, our sort of individual risk factors do figure into what we should be doing. So again, it's something that needs to be discussed with your physician. Okay. And you mentioned coming in here, screening for longevity generally. PSA over 50, I have prostate cancer. PSA over 50, over 40 if you have a first degree relative, colonoscopies every 3 to 7 years after 50.
Right. 45.
Check 40. I like earlier is better.
Right. I say 45.
You can also get a genetic screen for things like Lynch syndrome, which I also have, which puts you at risk for colon cancer. You would be screened more frequently if you have that, and check your moles. Right, you're absolutely right about
you want
that.
To?
Skin
that
care.
that
was the plan.
I'm gonna let you two
make it a group thing.
Well, the two of us are gonna. I just don't want to check anything else. We don't do the digital rectal exam anymore, so I'm sorry.
You know what? I was looking forward to it this year at my
visit. We're just doing the PSAs these days.
My doctor always had the same joke. I'm going to buy you dinner later. It's like, oh my God, stop, please. Just do it and let's get away.
Is this thing on? Is that thing on? Is this thing on?
Thank you, Dr. Drew, very much.
C15, if you want to see more, it's on my website, drdrew.com.
Thank you very much, Dr. Drew. Appreciate it. Follow Dr. Drew on Instagram at Dr. Drew Pinsky. Go check him out on the gram.